All right, welcome to another edition of the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Randy Zellea. Emerito Rivera is on assignment this week. We desperately miss him. But this week we still have a great show, even though Emma's not here, with Silas Young from Ring of Honor. The former ROH TV champion sits down and talks with me about everything Ring of Honor in his career. He talks about some of his beginnings back in 2002 when he broke into the business, discussed some of his training, discussed the responsibility of being an ROH champion, TV champion back in 2018. We discussed a little bit of that first match. We discussed him being a fan of the Green Bay Packers. We jumped in and discussed a couple different things. I don't think you want to hear me continuously ramble on. Let's go to Silas Young. All right, we're back here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. With me now, Ring of Honor, I'm going to say superstar because in our eyes he's a superstar, and he also recently got a friend request from the Undertaker himself, Silas Young. Silas, what's up, brother? How are you today, man?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I couldn't leave that out, man. I saw that you posted that on social media, and I was just like, dude got a friend request from the Undertaker. That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, well, it's like I mean, I think any male that's on Facebook, you'll get these friend requests from super attractive women. And then you click on the profile, and obviously, it's a fake profile. So it was the first time I got, I don't know, a friend request from like a fake wrestling YouTube, or wrestling Facebook account. It was just weird. So it was funny, though.
You're like, all right, cool, Undertaker, man. All right,
Mm-hmm.
and you had some experiences with Taker because you were with WWE for a little bit on and off. What was your interaction? Obviously, if you're getting friend requests from him, you guys have a little bit of a bond there, right?
No, I totally think it was a fake account. It wasn't a real account. I mean, the little bit of stuff I did with WWE was for like a half a cup of coffee, so it wasn't very much at all.
Well, it's funny, you mentioned that it was more of a cup of coffee. You spent a good portion of your career with Ring of Honor. What made Ring of Honor so attractive to you? Because a lot of talent, especially, you started in 2002. In 2002, there wasn't as many options as there is now, but Ring of Honor seems to have been like your home for a while.
So I started wrestling in 2002, worked the independents for a long time. And then in, I think maybe 2007, I got an opportunity to work for Ring of Honor and did a handful of shows. And that was at the time when Gabe Sapolsky was the booker. And from what I remember, I was going to be getting booked more regularly, but then Gabe lost his spot. And there was a transition to, I think, when Adam Pearce took over booking. And then I think maybe a couple years later when Pearce was booking, I was doing a bunch of TV stuff, but not really being used on the house shows or anything. Then started doing some stuff for Dragon Gate. So then I really kind of started with Ring of Honor in 2013. I did the Top Prospect tournament and then basically started full-time with them that June. I think a big part of what I like about it is the creative freedom. When you work there for a while and you can prove that you can put in good work or that you have good ideas and your ideas aren't just all about yourself, but help the company and help the bigger picture. I think it allows you to maybe get more creative freedom. So that's a big part of it for me. The schedule is amazing. It's not so great right now. I know a lot of people probably enjoy the time off and not working. And I did for the first, month or two of how things have been the last year and a half. But, I'm looking to get back to somewhat of a regular schedule. But even our regular schedules are, only a couple weekends a month. So it gives you a lot of time at home. I have a 12-year-old son. So, I like being home and being able to spend time with him.
And it's funny, too, when you first segued in there, you said it started in 2002 and to where you are now. Obviously, you've had a lot of life-changing situations go on, and you said you're there's nothing more important to you than being a dad, being able to spend time. How difficult is it for a wrestler's life when we're on a normal schedule to be able to balance home life and balance the road?
I think for especially guys who work for like WWE, I mean, it's like for them, it's probably been great the last year and a half, because everything's being taped in Orlando or Tampa or wherever it is. It's all basically where they live. So, they're probably really enjoying that, but typically they're gone a lot. And I think that's really hard. And that's, a big plus for, working for Ring of Honor. Our schedule isn't so heavy. So, and as well as other things like, the company really takes care of the guys. They were doing like through these last, how many ever handful of tapings since last August, have been really precautionary with taking COVID tests a week before you even leave, and then getting in and having to quarantine and take a COVID test the next day, and then take a COVID test the next day, all while quarantining. And then, only going to do tapings a couple people at a time in separate locker rooms and all that. They really looked out for the talent, and everybody that was working the shows, the crew, everything. So, having that schedule and having a company that kind of takes those extra steps, it makes you want to be at a place like that.
I've been asking a lot of people we've interviewed this type of question, especially with the pandemic. What has the pandemic done for you as a wrestler that made it sort of change the way you present not only yourself, but the way the company presents the product?
I think for how the company presents the product, I think it's really cool that we're doing something different. We got those really big screens that are up close, so it doesn't feel like you're wrestling in just some empty arena. They're not doing anything with like having faces on screens. I kind of like that they're doing something different. I think it's all made us slow down a little bit, which is always good. In wrestling, sometimes things can be a little too fast, and the crowd doesn't get the chance to absorb it and digest it and react to it. So I think that's been good. I think it's made guys realize that they have to really find a character or define that character or evolve a character, because a lot of wrestling is kind of just guys with a first name and a last name, and they're just really, really good wrestlers. But when you don't have this opportunity to showcase your strong points or your talents in the ring, you gotta find a way to display that, through social media videos or skits or whatever you're going to do. I know for myself, for years I just wrestled as Silas Young. I was just a guy with long hair and a beard. I was a good wrestler. People respected my work, I guess. So then when I went to Ring of Honor in 2013, shortly before that, I started dabbling with the Last Real Man thing. Last Real Man is like my father, basically. He had slick back hair and a mustache. My dad was a badass, and it's just kind of like a nod to men of the past. But my point is, like, I realized that going into Ring of Honor, like, all these guys here are really good wrestlers. I need to do something to stand out. So that's when I really kind of, went into high gear on the Last Real Man thing and really started embracing it more and more. So I think in the last year, it's made guys realize they need to develop more character or show the people who they are.
Was it difficult for you not to have the fans in the arena?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is for everybody. It sucks, man. Like, I think if one thing guys will learn, it's how important fans are. I mean, it's not that we didn't know that, but just it's hard to get hyped for a match and go out there and wrestle hard when you're getting no reaction, especially when you've been doing it for years and years and years, and you're so used to feeding off that crowd's energy, and you're so used to almost pacing your match to the crowd's energy as well.
Where did you come up with the cigarette after the match gimmick? type of routine. I shouldn't have said gimmick. I'm sorry. More of like the routine there.
You know what? I mean, as you can see, I'm a smoker. I don't know. I think it kind of just started out as a joke and it evolved from there. A lot of things in wrestling, like, I think sometimes fans think that, like, people like sit down like in a boardroom and they're like, all right, well, what are we going to do with this character now? What's a story we can do or something funny? Like, that's not how most wrestling stuff happens. Most wrestling stuff just happens when people are shooting the breeze, coming up, like, saying like, hey man, I was thinking about this thing that would be funny if you do. And then maybe they'll be like, oh shit, what if I did it like this or this? And so a lot of wrestling stuff just kind of happens organically or comes out of just someone making a joke or something like that.
Well, it caught my eye the last couple matches I watched with you. I was like, oh, cool. Well, check it out. He's smoking a cigarette. Like, is that supposed to be okay? It's supposed to be on camera. All right. Let's go back to the time machine for a minute. Let's talk about your training. You trained with Chris Bassett, Mike Mercury, Angel. I'm going to butcher the last name, and I apologize, Armani. What do you remember about your training, and what was the experience like the first time you sort of took a bump, and what was the general training like for you?
Okay, so I feel like I kind of had, like, you named all three of the guys, and you named them in the perfect order too. So I started out with Chris Bassett. So I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin. It's like maybe 20 minutes south of Green Bay. So I had started going to indie shows, and I really wanted to become a wrestler. And I was going to Mike Mercury shows, and they were really good. And they had a number that you could call for the dojo. And I called a bunch of times and left messages, never heard anything back. Then I saw at a show like the next month they were going to have like I guess almost like a fantasy camp thing for like $50. You can train for the day and see if it's something you want to do. So I was like, yeah, I'm all about it. So I had went and did that training thing, and I took bumps and stuff like that. I kind of did okay with it. I was a gymnast when I was younger, but it definitely beat me up. Like, I remember after that day, my brother had taken me there and picked me up, and he's like, how'd it go? And I was like, oh man, I don't know, man. They beat me up pretty bad. I don't know if I can do this. And he was like, don't be a pussy. You can do it. So my plan was to train at that place. But the next week I had ran into a buddy who I went to high school with, who had already trained to be a wrestler and was currently wrestling. And I told him, oh man, I'm gonna train. He's like, well, why don't you come train where I train at? It's here like 10 minutes from where we live. And we do it every Sunday. And that was Chris Bassett. So when I went there the first time, he didn't even have a ring yet because it was still kind of cold out, but they had a bumping platform in the garage.
Oh God.
But it was actually, it was fairly safe and well put together. Well, not well put together. It was like made out of like plywood and like some car tires, but it worked fine. And that training was okay. So Chris Bassett was like a jobber guy back in the 80s for like AWA and WWF, but and he taught the super basics, like lockups, grab an arm, grab a head, put on a hammer lock, bumps, body slams, hip tosses. But I never learned any psychology there. There was no like how to put a match together. A wrestling match is like a TV show or a movie of you have these certain patterns that puts together a good match. So you need to learn how to do that, right? But I didn't learn any of that. So I had trained with him for about a year, got booked a few times. And then in my fourth match, I dislocated my elbow, and that required surgery. And I remember like a couple months I was kind of hung up by that point. I had met a few people in wrestling and got hooked up with Mike Mercury. And I just kind of remember thinking like, man, like, the guys in Green Bay, like, their matches are way better than the place that I'm working at. Like, I feel like maybe there's something I don't know yet that I need to learn. So then I decided, like, when I was better, I contacted that guy and Mike Mercury, and I went up, and he had a kid that was training and was just getting to the point of starting to work matches, which is kind of where I was at. So for a couple of months, we would train a couple times a week and, do practice matches and just basically learn how to put stuff together. And then for probably a good year after that, I would travel with Mike because he did a lot of ring rentals. So I'd travel with him, help him set up the ring, and then he'd get me booked on the show. And through doing that, I met Angel Armani, and Angel's like, at this point, he's like 60 some years old. Like, he trained to wrestle at 37. But he's really, really good. He knows how to control a crowd. For a while, me and him probably wrestled each other like, I don't know, 100 or more times over a couple years span, where we would get ring experience for me. And the funny thing was, I think he was like 50 years old at the time, maybe late 40s, early 50s. And we were going out there and we were having these ridiculously good matches. Like, we had a couple of matches where we went like 40, 50 minutes, 2 out of 3 falls. And I definitely learned a lot from Angel. And he really looked at him as like my, I guess like my trainer or my sensei, so to speak.
Your Yoda?
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you a question. What do you remember back about the 25-man battle royal at NFW's first stake event, which was your first match? What do you remember about it?
Oh my God, you found that, huh? Was it like in a crowd with nobody there?
I listen. Like I said, I do research. We do research, and we were able to sort of look up, because I think one of the websites lists everybody's matches, and we saw that your first one was the battle royal. So how was that? A little intimidating, or did you feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that it was a 25-man battle royal in that sense?
Honestly, I can't really even remember what I thought at the time, but I mean, I assume I was probably like fairly happier that it wasn't a match, and that a battle royal, knowing that they're a little bit easier. But I was probably still, scared out of my mind.
What was it like for you to wrestle some of the great high flyers in wrestling, like some of the great technical wrestlers as well, like Jushin Liger and Jerry Lynn? What was it like working with guys who sort of had that equity in the business like they did?
Man, it was amazing. When I first started wrestling, obviously I wanted to be able to make a living at it, but my goal was just to, be booked every weekend or try and work as much as possible. So then when I started getting opportunities working with guys like that, it was amazing. You learn so much from guys that are better than you. I think that's like a big thing a lot of guys can learn, is that as an independent wrestler, you should try and get booked, as many different places as possible. And when doing that, you should try and get good quality opponents, people you can learn from. So that's really the only way you get better. So being able to wrestle guys like that was like, really cool. I watched those guys as a kid or as a fan growing up. So it was a great experience. It's a little intimidating, but I got the opportunity to work with Jerry Lynn quite a few times, and it was always such a good time.
And I obviously, was like we said before about Jushin Thunder Liger just being a total legend in this business,
Right.
and just retiring. You said that was a little overwhelming for you. What about in a situation like in Ring of Honor in 2018 when you become the TV champion? They put enough trust in you, and they felt they can build a certain part of the program around you and your talents. How did that make you feel, knowing that they can put that much trust in you like that?
That's awesome. I've been a champion or whatever for other companies, for independent companies, but I feel like when you finally get a championship for, a world recognized company, a company that can pay you to make a living, I feel like that's a huge step in anyone's career, because like you said, it's the company saying, hey, we believe in you. So it's definitely like a big boost for the ego, and how you feel about your work, and makes you more confident. When you're more confident what you're doing, you're just going to be better at it, especially in a business like wrestling.
Did you feel that there was any added pressure because they gave you the TV championship?
I think so. You have to embrace that pressure, though. If you don't feel the pressure, maybe it's not the right fit for you then, because you really should, want to take any championship you have and try and elevate it.
So, like we were discussing earlier about your length of time in Ring of Honor, and like you said before, you did have a couple tryout matches with WWE. What was it like for you stepping behind the scenes of that? I guess they call it the machine. Seeing on how that machine was run, and was it intimidating at all? Did you find it to be a little overwhelming?
Not overwhelming, but it's definitely intimidating. They're the top of the mountain, so being able to be there and being able to work in front of, live crowds of like 15, 20,000 people, that's pretty amazing. But honestly, once you get in the ring and you start wrestling, that kind of all goes away, and you're just into what you're doing. But yeah, it was a great experience. I'm happy that I got those experiences, and I feel like it probably helped lead me to where I am today. But yeah, it's definitely an intimidating thing, that's for sure.
Recently, you tagged with Josh Woods. Apparently, something didn't work out, or something didn't sit right with you. And now, this upcoming week on ROH TV, you're going to be across the ring from him. What happened with the relationship with Josh Woods, and why did it deteriorate the way it did?
Well, as far as I see it, I really I was the unselfish one in this situation. I put my singles career on hold to help mentor him, to help teach him about wrestling in and out of the ring. And then I was gone for a couple months, and I come back, and I'm trying to get the tag team going back again. And I just felt like he disrespected me after everything that I did. So after he didn't listen to me for the umpteenth time, I hit him with a chair. And then we had a match a couple weeks ago on Ring of Honor TV, and I beat him. So coming up here, I believe this weekend, we're having a Pure Rules match.
What is it like to be sort of one of the elder men? Not I want to say one of the elder leaders of the locker room, but have some of these younger guys come in. Do they come in and pick your brain? Is something that you always say? Listen, if you have any questions or anything I can help with, let me know. Do they come and ask you for advice?
You know what? I think that's the cool thing about the locker room there. It's not just the younger guys. Everybody bounces things off of everybody. It's always good to get someone else's perspective. I think there's definitely guys in the locker room that people respect and will come and ask about things. But I think just in general, that's the locker room culture.
Real quick, let's plug your social media. I actually have it all set for you. Look at this. I know you'll be happy to see that we're boom. Look at that.
There we go. Nice.
I know you're on Twitter and I know you're on Facebook. Are we Instagramming or are we not?
Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram too at Last Real Man ROH.
Okay, awesome. And real quick, I guess my last two questions is, what your passion for professional wrestling, was there any particular match or any particular wrestler you watched growing up that said, I really want to do this?
I don't not necessarily any one match, but I grew up with 5 older brothers, so I remember wrestling's one of my earliest memories is watching wrestling in the living room, in diapers. So I just feel like my whole life wrestling's been around, and when it came to the time to become a wrestler, it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest. But I had watched wrestling my whole life, so I think it's just one of those lifetime things,
And was there any particular wrestler that you admired when you were growing up that you're like, man, that's cool, that's something that I want to do?
Oh yeah, definitely Hulk Hogan, man. Yeah, I was in the 80s and 90s kids. I liked Hulk Hogan. I really liked the Rockers. I liked British Bulldog. Yeah, I was like a good little fan. I liked all the baby faces. So.
Was it me or back in that 89-90 range? Is Demolition one of the most underrated tag teams to ever be champions?
Oh, dude, they were amazing, man.
Yeah,
they were amazing.
Just watching them do the double team and I think the presentation of the face painting, the Rockers were good because they were able to. The Rockers and the Hart Foundation, best work rate at that point in the ring. Right. But as far as characters and a team that made you believe that they can beat you at any time was Demolition.
Right. I think that was a great thing about tag team wrestling back then. Tag teams were tag teams, and they were tag teams for years. Now guys just kind of get put together and will do a 6-month thing. But back then, tag team wrestling was great, and I feel like they did a good job of the booking at the time, where it felt like almost all those teams were tag team champions at one point or another, or definitely believable that they could win. They had the Hart Foundation, they had the Rockers, they had Demolition, they had Powers of Pain, they had the Rougeau brothers,
the Brainbusters.
So many good tag teams.
Yeah. And then even in the NWA, they had the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express. They had that was just a different age of tag team wrestling. It was just it was such a beautiful thing. And also, you being a Wisconsin guy, and I'm pretty sure if I had to guess, you were a Green Bay Packer fan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I cover the Giants out here in New York, but I gotta ask: is Aaron Rodgers coming back? What's going on? Your opinion as a fan? I gotta ask.
I think he's definitely coming back. I think we just live in the day and age where people need to piss and moan on social media about something, and it's just part of the culture nowadays. He's been around for what, I don't know, 15 years or something like that, right? Maybe 13, 15 years. And I guess he's mad because they drafted another quarterback last year, but that's what football has to do. It's a business, So
yeah, it's a cycle. And if you remember correctly, that's the same thing that happened to Brett Favre. Favre,
the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. So Silas, listen, I appreciate you giving me a few minutes. I'm glad we were able to talk today. I hope you had fun. And again, we appreciate you coming on the Cut Pro Wrestling podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anytime. Happy to do it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, that was Silas Young here on the Cut Pro Wrestling podcast. A lot to unpack there. He did a lot of interesting things throughout his career, starting in 2002, discussing his training, discussed why he was smoking at the end of his matches. I was like, wow, floored a little bit. Discussed the elevation of his gimmick, and also discussed what he's doing right now on Ring of Honor television with Josh Woods. They have a match this upcoming weekend. Check it out. Check your local listings for Ring of Honor programming. Special thank you to Andrew Fumey, who makes us look as good as we do every single week. Emerito Rivera will be back next week for next week's show. We have some great indie talent coming up. Again, let's follow the show here, Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast on Instagram, the Cut PW Podcast on Instagram. We're on Twitter, Cut Wrestling BSP, and we're on Facebook, Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. And guys, you can download us, give us a 5-star review, show us some love on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, of course, Back Sports page. Show us some love. We really appreciate you guys tuning in every single week to the great interviews that we put out here for you. We do it for you guys. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to download us. And again, special thank you to our producer, Andrew Fumey. Special thanks to Mark over at Ring of Honor for setting this interview up. And until next time, I'm Randy Zellea from BackSportsPage.com, and this was the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast.